Aligning your expertise to clients' needs is one of the most important things that any speaker or consultant needs to do. Remember, what sets you apart makes you valuable to somebody. There is an audience for what you speak about. Your expertise is valuable. Now, I like to say that being an expert isn't enough. Your job is to think about how your expertise aligns with your client's needs. So, if you're a leadership speaker, that just makes you generic. But if you are a leadership speaker with a background in a specific area, that makes you valuable. If you have experience in the automotive industry and you want to be a leadership speaker or a sales trainer, let's say you're a speaker who speaks to sales audiences and you have vast experience in retail or the automotive industry. Where do you think you're going to have the most credibility with an audience? You're going to have a credibility with an audience that knows that you can empathize with their day-to-day lived experience. So if you have an expertise, you are going to have a much easier time finding business if you can align that to your experience and find audiences that have some commonality with you because they will identify with you. Now, if you are a content speaker, you can really only add value to an organization or group if you can successfully align your expertise to their needs. Now, I was speaking to a speaker a few years back, and his expertise was Abraham Lincoln. Now, he had a very deep, almost encyclopedic knowledge of Abraham Lincoln, and his experience was in academia and the prison system. Now, he came up to me and he said, I'm having a lot of trouble. I don't know how to get people to pay for my talk on Abraham Lincoln. So my question to him was, who is your ideal client? Now, he said, everybody, because everybody needs to know about Abraham Lincoln. I am not going to argue that everybody should know something about Honest Abe, but I am going to tell you this. I think of it more of a civics lesson than a business lesson. So how does this gentleman with an expertise in Abraham Lincoln turn that expertise and align that with a client? We started talking a little bit more about Abraham Lincoln, and it turns out that what he is doing is he's using Abraham Lincoln as a device to show a style of leadership called servant leadership. Now, the market for Lincoln may be small, but the market for improved leadership is large. Now, he could shift his talk that now he is not just going and pitching himself as an expert on Abraham Lincoln. He can pitch himself as an expert on servant leadership who uses the lesson of Lincoln to make his points. Now, again, who would be his ideal audiences? He went to a program and he was told that he should be targeting insurance groups and financial services. Yes, they've got lots of money, but his credibility would be in school boards and law enforcement because his background in academia and the prison system. Now, who would he talk to in school boards? Well, servant leadership. There would be an association of principals or trustees, people in leadership positions at school boards. They would be the type of people he could talk to. And there are state organizations filled with these people and national organizations filled with these people. He can use servant leadership as a way to build a better school system. So additionally, he also has the experience of working in prisons. So I was saying to him that he could also apply the servant leadership approach in using Lincoln to associations of sheriffs and law enforcement associations, that he can go in and say, how do you build a better organization built based on the lessons of servant leadership and the lessons of Lincoln? So this is an example of where he had an expertise. He was struggling to find out how he could align this expertise to some sort of a business value. And it really came down to just figuring out what is the actual lesson and not the story, and then aligning that with people that he has credibility with. If you can do that, if you have an expertise that you think is out there and not sellable, think, what is the core lesson of your expertise? Who would be interested in your lesson more than your story, and where do you have credibility? Now, my second case study is a person who came up to me and his experience was in construction. He had worked 20 years in construction and he had in leadership positions. Now, his expertise was leadership, but he actually hated working in construction. So he came up to me and I said, let's talk about your business. So he's a leadership speaker. He's having trouble getting business. And I asked him, how are you having trouble getting business when you've got this extensive resume in construction and saving hundreds of millions of dollars for your business? He said, whoa, step back a minute. I'm not in construction. I want to speak on leadership. And so I told him, your credibility is in the construction industry. You can go in and speak to an association and say, the business case is that 97% of projects are failures defined by going over budget or over time. The lesson that you can bring to the table is that your knowledge and experience in leadership can actually reduce project failure and save companies millions of dollars and make projects run on time. This is your return on investment. But he said, I hate construction. You are not in construction anymore. You are a speaker who is servicing the construction industry. It is completely different. That's where you have credibility. It's in construction. You can save your clients millions of dollars by sharing your knowledge, and you can leverage your existing connections to get you in front of audiences that will be hiring you for more and more business. So my point here is, if you have your expertise and you have it down cold, think about how do you make that expertise valuable to an audience? Because just being an expert is not enough to get you hired. You've got to figure out that way that makes the connection between your genius and their pocketbooks. If you can do that, you're really going to be setting yourself up for success in the long term.